All right, now let's take a look at what it's going to take to improve the intonation on an acoustic guitar. You'll remember we left the saddle flat here so that we can take a look at how we can adjust that instead of just rounding it off. There's some things we can do to make this come in to tune a little better. So let's first tune it up to pitch and then make some calculations here. Now we don't have a pickup, we're just using the microphone here, so you might have to pick it a little bit harder and go a little more with the open string. Just a little bit sharper. It's important to really spend some time and get this tuning as perfect as you can. Let's make a list here. Let's go and write out the strings: E, A, D, and G, B, and E. The E looked pretty good. This A it looks pretty good too. It's almost wanting to go flat a little, so I'm going to say okay, and I'm going to put a little flat sign over it because it's pretty close. The D looks real good. Let's go to the G. Let's get that harmonic. That looks good. And once again, it looks pretty good. Let's mark that down. I think this is where we're going to have the trouble. You never know with acoustic guitars where they position the saddles. Only so much you can do with it. And if they're way off, you will actually have to take it in, and a professional luthier will have to fill that slot and reposition the saddle entirely. But the gild's pretty good, and this particular guitar looks like we're going to be able to make some adjustments just by reshaping the saddle. That should get us right in there. Yeah, that's sharp. So we're going to have to carve that back a little bit. And then we have the high E. There we go, it's reading. There we go. A little trouble getting them to come in sometimes without a pickup, but that one looks pretty good. So it looks like our B is our big problem here. So we'll take a look at the strings. We'll loosen up the strings here so we can get the saddle out. Here's where we can take that string winder and pop these pins. I like to pull those out in threes. Let's wind them up out of your way so they don't get tangled. Let's see this one. Yeah, this saddle's a little too tight to get out, so we're going to take our pliers here. Just grab the end of it, and there we go. Out she comes. I'm just going to, I've got it loose. Now what I'm going to do is just go ahead and make a little mark. I can almost see the strings made their own little mark on there, but I'm going to get my super goggles out because I want to see just exactly. I can tell, well, some of these strings came across. It looks like the low E, though, it only made it to there. Didn't come all the way across because this is still fairly flat. The rest of them came the whole way. So when I carve it, I'm looking back at my sheet here. I can see the E was okay. So were all the strings except for the B. So I'll take a pencil here and we'll just we've made a little mark where the E is. We only want to file to that point, and we're going to want to bring that B back. By how sharp it was, I'm just going to say let's bring it back all the way. So let's just take this over here with our little file, and we've got our B here. And you may want to, something I also usually like to do is go ahead and mark the bottom with an H if you want, just so you can remember which way it went in. So we'll go ahead and file this back. The E was pretty good, so we're going to concentrate the file more on just the B area. And leave a little bit of meat there for the string to sit on. You want to make sure you stay this area we have here. You want to, that's all matched to the radius so that the instrument plays and the action is the same, so you don't want to get rid of that. So that top surface has to stay there. Even though we're carving this back, we want to leave a little bit of this here. That way the string will still be within the same plane. Now let's carve a little bit forward on the E. Just round those over a little bit, like that. Flip it around. The E, the low E, remember we wanted that one back a little bit, so we'll treat that special. Just carve back on that a little bit. And then the other three strings we're going to come in from this side, because they were all coming off the front edge and that read real well, so let's keep them there. I'm just trying to keep it, put a little roundness to it so the strings go over it real nicely. Got to round out the back of that area for that low E string as well a little bit. Okay, a little more touch up on that. You might want to take the edge off the outside edge of the saddle just so your hand doesn't get something sticking in it. And that looks pretty good. Usually when I'm done with that, I'll take a little piece of 600 and just sand it. This won't change the shape much, but it will give a nicer surface for the string to go across, so you don't have any rough edges. Just go over that a little bit. Now we've reshaped that saddle, and you can see that it's got quite a different shape to it, and that should facilitate the differences we were seeing here when we calculated our intonation, so that even though it's not an adjustable saddle like on an electric guitar, by using a file and using a strobe tuner, you can sort of guesstimate where it needs to go. Once again, this is something you can do over a few times. You may want to make an entirely new saddle. Like I said before, some guitars, the position of the saddle is bad. You can't, even with this kind of adjusting, you can't get it. It needs to be further back or further up. That's when you have to take it into a professional, have them fill that slot and reposition the saddle entirely. But this guitar looked pretty good. I think we're going to do pretty well here. Let's put the strings back on, and then we'll check it and see where it came out. I think it's going to read pretty well. The idea here too, once again with intonation, is your guitar will play more in tune. A lot of times people think the tuners on their guitar is bad because they're playing it and then they switch to a different key and everything sounds sour, and they start retuning and they think that it's slipping out of tune. And what's really happening is it's never playing in tune in the first place. It's sour, and the reason it's sour, you'll play down here, it'll sound pretty good, and move up the scale, all of a sudden it sounds bad up here, because the if the guitar is not intonated properly, it just won't play in tune properly, no matter how good of an ear you have to self-temper. And people self-temper all the time when you're playing in a certain key, and you make some little adjustments by your ear because you say, oh, the guitar sounds better if I just adjust it a little. And even if you're using a tuner, you'll have it tuned perfect to the tuner, and you wonder, geez, I just want to adjust this one note a little bit. That's tempering. And a lot of times you will get chords to sound a little sweeter by doing that. But overall, if you get the guitar intonating in the first place properly, then you actually will have a much easier time using a tuner and other devices to get in tune on stage. When say you're in a situation where you really can't, you're on stage, you really can't hear that well. So you want to have a tuner that you can trust. And if the guitar is not intonated properly, you're not going to be able to trust the tuner. It's just not going to work. So let's get this tune back up. Okay, I think we're pretty much in tune there. Let's go ahead and just check those again. Yeah, that looks pretty good. A little more tweaking. Yeah, that's good. Looks good. So far, so good. Yeah, it's pretty good on that B. That was way sharp, remember. Hard to get those E's to read on this particular tuner. Just get a brief second there and it looks pretty good, so I think that'll do it. We've made those little adjustments to the saddle and we've got a guitar that'll play far better in tune. One of the things you want to do to really get it to settle a little better is to when you first put a new set of strings on to do this, let them sit overnight. And they sit overnight, they stretch a little bit, you pull on them, it'll make it a little bit easier, like we're trying to do this now, and the reeds, it keeps moving on us a little bit. It's a little easier if you let them sit overnight, totally stretch out. And let's just go over that one more time. You want the harmonic on the 12th fret to match fretting it on the 12th fret. And that's why it's important when you fret it that you do a nice job of it. Maybe do it several times and see if it reads well. And if you get those two to match, most scales, if they're made well, will play very well. So that's pretty much all there is to getting a guitar to intonate well.